Welcome to the Grace Shaw channel. And right now we're going to take a moment and talk about the law of demand. So what is the law of demand? It is a fundamental principle of economics that states that at a higher price, consumers will demand a lower quantity of that particular good. So let's take a look at a demand curve. So this here is a good example. You have prices on the y-axis and quantity on the x-axis, and that is kind of typical setup for most graphs that you're going to be seeing for the law of demand or supply. So here you see various prices, various quantities, and these are going to increase as they go up or outward. So as you're seeing here, as you can see by the arrows here, this is going outward from the demand line 1 to the demand line of number 2. And this is called a shift in the demand curve. So the whole demand curve is shifting. So let's take a look at another way of looking at some of the demands, law of demands. And as you see, this red line, it's facing downward. It's going from point A to point B. And in this scenario, this is just a movement along the quantity demanded. So let's put this knowledge into action. So let's try this problem. Betty and Wilma wish to buy t-shirts and jeans. Betty has a budget of $600 while Wilma has a budget of $1,200. So this is a multi-part problem. So in part A, using the indifference curve analysis, given the following table, determine the prices for the blouses and jeans. So at this point, you will be taking the quantities of blouses, jeans for Betty and for Wilma and putting those into the first two columns of that chart. And why don't you hit pause on the video and fill those in? And when you come back, we'll have the answers. Answers that you should have came up with, because Betty had 30 blouses, had 5 jeans, and that is given at point A. And you should have been able to fill this side of the table in. So now go ahead and hit pause again and see if you can figure out the prices of those given this table. Here are the prices of blouses and jeans that you should have came up with. All jeans would have, no matter what quantities was bought, was $30, where prices of blouses were ranged between of the price of $15 or the price of $30, depending upon the quantities and their budgets there. So let's move on to, we have all the data. So let's just remove those original graphs. And we need to derive the demand curve for those t-shirts. Forget about jeans. We're just looking at t-shirts right now. We are going to be doing a demand curve. So I went ahead and pre-filled in. We have prices. The only prices that we have of the t-shirts is $15 and $30 respectively. Put them on the chart. And if you look at quantities for Betty, we have 30 and 10. And Wilma, we have 20 and 60 to put on their graph. So hit pause and see if you can fill those points in, as well as your line for demand line. So let's take a look at Betty. And if we take the point of $30 for Betty, we are looking at going down to the 10 mark. And if we were to do this for $15, we are then looking at $30. And we'll continue to do this for Wilma. And again, at $30, we are going to be able to buy 20. And if at $15 for each shirt, we are then looking at we can buy 60. So hopefully you have gotten this far. So now let's take and make our lines, or demand lines. And we would just join those points and make our line. I'm just going to copy that over, make another line, and we are going to do the same for Wilma. And so that would be what our demand curve for t-shirts for Betty and Wilma look like. So our next part of the problem asks us to do a market demand curve. So a market demand is the summation of all individual demands at given market prices. So we want to know how many at $30 and at $15, what quantities of t-shirts that we would be able to buy if together between Betty and Wilma, if they are the only customers on a business end. I hope there are more customers than just Betty and Wilma, but then maybe this is a just starting out business. And so we're going to look at $15, and we have quantity of shirts for Betty at 30 and Wilma at 60. So 30 and 60 gives us 90. So at price point $15, we would be buying 90 t-shirts. And then again, we do this for the $30, and we are able, Betty can have 10 and Wilma at 20. So that gives us a total of 30 t-shirts being able to be bought. So then we're going to put our line in, which looks something similar to this, and that would be our market demand curve for all customers in the database for t-shirts at the given prices of $15 and $30. So that is your law of demand. So if you have any questions, hit me up and be sure to subscribe to